The Celtics won Game 4. I mean, honestly, I don't think this changes the outcome of the series. I do think Miami is going to win. I think that it would be very unlikely for this group of Celtics to be the ones to win if 3 games in a row and finally break the streak of like 160 teams being down 3-0 and they all lost. I don't think that's happening, and I honestly believe that the Heat got it in terms of winning. I do believe that this was a nice retaliation game for them. Jimmy played well, but I do believe that he did show signs of weakness, which is something that in most of their games he had it. Like, he still dropped 29 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, on 9 for 21 shooting from the field, a block and a steal. But I do believe that he was one of those players that while he was on the floor, he was a negative for the team. He was blocked by Grant Williams, and he had a lot of possessions where he just looked bad. Also, I want to say that Bam, a guy who they had leaned on for most of this series, played pretty poorly. We know that Bam is just one of those guys who could always be efficient and he could always actually get it done when it comes to putting points on the board. But how you put those points up and what you do for a game is different. And for the entire game, he had 10 points and 5 rebounds with 4 turnovers, right? And he had the worst plus minus of a negative 21 while he was on the floor for the entire Miami Heat team. I believe that Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin played well, but it was more of the same thing where it's just like it you're not playing up to a standard which you have set. But honestly, I believe that this loss was necessary. I don't think that the Heat needed to sweep anybody because honestly, they're one of those teams which they thrive off being doubted and they thrive off of not being picked to win, and them having and people having so much confidence in them probably changes the way that people look at them. You saw Jimmy smiling after the game in the fourth quarter, and I do want to see what he does next game in Boston. But I think the question now is how far does the series go before Miami wins? Does it take just one game tomorrow in Boston, right, for Miami to win, or does it take, a game 6 at home? What is it going to take for this team to finally get it done? And honestly, in the end, that doesn't really matter. But I do think that Miami needs to step up because after playing the way they did, it looks really bad on them. I also do believe that Kevin Love, it would be better to integrate him more. I get that he normally starts the game and he'll sometimes finish it, but I do believe that giving those bench guys that many minutes is kind of a risk, especially in all of these important games. Sometimes it works out, but sometimes it doesn't. And I also want to say that Duncan Robinson only got 11 minutes after having one of the best games of his entire career. Then, now I want to talk about the Celtics, which all played phenomenally, if we're being honest. Jayson Tatum finally played like a superstar, dropped 33 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, and looked dominant throughout the game with a plus minus of 21. He got 2 blocks and a steal. The only problem is that he had 5 turnovers, and of course we know that's a problem with him, but I do believe that in a playoff game, which matters a lot, it is unacceptable to have 5 turnovers, right? Especially when you were on the brink of elimination. Easily those turn into fast points, and Miami could have kept this game closer. Jaylen Brown played okay. Jaylen Brown just looks like he gave up on this series, like he knows that they lost. And that's something that we don't normally see from Jaylen Brown, but I do believe that it's something interesting. He dropped 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. But the real stars come in when we start talking about the role players, and sorry to call them that. And the big 3 are Derek White, Al Horford, and Grant Williams. Those 3 guys played phenomenal games. They all played great defense, and they all had really efficient scoring nights. right? Like Derek White shot 50% from the field, like 40% from three, and he had 16 points with 2 blocks and 2 steals and 1 turnover. It's like that's a phenomenal game. Then you have guys like Grant Williams who blocked Jimmy Butler and also had 14 points and 6 rebounds, and Al Horford who hit 3 of his 6 threes, which of course, as we all know, when Al Horford is hitting his threes, they normally, is a good game for the Celtics. I do believe that now it's just, can Boston actually make Miami mentally suffer? This series I think for most people is decided, but I do believe that this game could shift a mental focus. Like Miami lost at home, and that's big for Miami since they had not lost at home. And I do believe that now this poses a new question of, if you are the Celtics, do you keep trying? Like, I understand it's good to always put your 100% effort, but in my opinion, you have to chalk it up to, oh, they're just better than us, they played harder than us. But I don't think the Celtics could come back from this. If they do, then it would be a miracle, but let's face it, like, they're probably not going to, especially after losing 2 games at home. And also, another thing that I want to say is, what is it going to take for Miami to win? Right? Like, is it going to take another Jimmy Butler masterclass where he drops 37 points and he drops 8 rebounds and 4 assists? Or is it just going to take a good, effective game by Miami to put them away? I believe all these questions will be answered next game, as we will see how the series progresses, but I just want Miami to never get comfortable. They look comfortable because it's the first time they've had a 3-0 lead in, I think, years, right? So it's like, I think they feel pretty good, taking this lead and running with it, but I do believe that their guys have to lock in into, we have to win that final game to actually advance to the finals. And when we are in the finals, we need to play to win a championship. Moving on to that, I don't know if the matchup is actually Denver, Miami, Nuggets, Heat. I don't think that the Heat could win, and that just comes from my heart. I'm a Heat fan, and I love that the Heat are probably going to make the finals this year. But let's face it, like, how are the Heat going to scale up against the Nuggets? Like, the Nuggets are a phenomenal team. They run a lot of offense, and they have the best player in the world, or at least he's one of the best players in the world. I do believe that it's going to be hard for the Heat to even touch the Nuggets in any way, but I do believe that the best thing that the Heat have is defense, and a lot of it. So I just want to see how the series goes. I'm really excited for that, and I think I'm going to try to watch every single game fully, because honestly, those are the best games of the entire season. I do want to watch the game tomorrow, see how it goes, see how they play, and I do believe that the biggest thing in this series of going back to the Boston and Miami series has been role players. It's obvious that it's either the stars are going to be good or they're going to be bad, right? Like, we've seen that with Bam, who's very inconsistent, who's been phenomenal, but then he was off last game. We saw that with the Jays, where they had a terrible game, but now they have a pretty good game combined, right? As they together in game 4, they dropped 50 points. But I do believe that the star power is not as important as the role players in this series, right? Like, Miami's role players have been amazing. Gabe Vincent dropping 29 points in game 3. Caleb Martin being consistently clutch, especially when they were in Boston. He played phenomenally and hit a lot of big shots there. And as much as the stars are the ones expected to win you the games, I do want to see how next game, who affects the game the most. Is it going to be another Duncan Robinson performance? Is it going to be Derek White? Is it going to be Malcolm Brogdon? And with all of this, I just want to say that I hope the Heat don't lose their confidence. They are up 3-0, but That's normally the time where people just relax and let go, especially if you're not, a veteran and if you haven't made the playoffs before. And I hope that Jimmy can be the leader who can tell them, hey guys, let's lock in. All we have to do is win one more game and then we're on to the finals. But yeah, let's see what happens tomorrow in game 5.